We'll take a deeper dive on the President's State of the Union address on this edition of Tune In.
Hi, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Here's your host, Representative Rick Crawford.
Welcome to Tune In. I'm your host, Rick Crawford. Glad to have you with us again. We talked a little bit about the President's State of the Union address in a quick response earlier this week, but right now I want to talk about it in some greater detail and hit some of the high points. And look, I'm a glass half full guy. I mean, I really try to be positive. So here's one thing I want you to take away from this. The good news is this is his final State of the Union address. So that's the positive. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's talk about the speech. There's a whole lot of problems with this speech. But the first thing I want to address is the fact that he never even mentioned, while he was speaking, we had 10 sailors in Iranian custody. To me, that's unbelievable. All this with the backdrop of the fact that we are just about ready to vote on a measure to solidify those sanctions, on the Iranians and in the backdrop of the Iranian weapons agreement and the whole 9 yards. And yet he fails to mention it at all. Now, the next morning, after the State of the Union address, those 10 sailors were released. Thank God, a lot of prayers went up for those individuals and for their families. So I'm really concerned about this and the continuing posture of this administration to kowtow to the Iranians at every turn. It's just unbelievable. And the fact that he didn't even mention it, that we had 10 sailors in custody as he began that speech. They weren't released until sometime around 3 o'clock in the morning, Central Time. And so we know that, if there was any plan to try and secure their release, it certainly wasn't communicated to us, and he never mentioned it in his State of the Union. So, and was there an apology offered? Because that was certainly bandied about. And then the Vice President this morning on CBS News made this statement that there was no apology necessary. The Iranians did what he called, quote, "This is just standard nautical practice." Standard nautical practice? You take 10 sailors into custody, basically steal our boats, and that's standard nautical practice because we had a technical malfunction of a boat and drifted into international waters, and the Iranians decided to take our sailors. That was one of the biggest, I thought, mistakes that he made. Then he went on to say that ISIS doesn't threaten our national existence. That's part of their plan, is to threaten our national existence. We just had that incident in San Bernardino where they did that in the name of ISIS. We had the incident just this week or late last week about with the Philadelphia police officer who was shot 13 times, or shot at 13 times. 3 of those landed, and yet he still subdued this suspect, and he acknowledged that he was doing that in sympathy with and support of ISIS. And you still can't get to a point where you can call radical Islam, and you can identify that ISIS has as a goal to threaten our national security. It's amazing to me that he can stand there straight-faced and talk to us like that and pretend that those problems don't exist. Now, one other thing I want to talk about, because I've got to, and I'm going to pull this up on my phone here. I just can't let this go by without mentioning it. He said, and this is the statement from taken directly from the transcript of his speech. That's why we need to reject any politics that targets people because of race or religion. This isn't a matter of political correctness. It's a matter of understanding what makes us strong. The world respects us not just for our arsenal, it respects us for our diversity and our openness and the way we respect every faith. Roll tape.
Well, it's not surprising then that they get better and they cling to guns or religion.
Now, can you imagine 2008 then candidate Obama, and contrasting this with he's going to tell us what we need to do to respect the diversity of faith that exists in this country and make a statement like that? I just think he's so far removed from regular folks like you and like me. Whatever you want to call it. You can call it flyover country if you want to. He made that reference, that the video you just saw, that was at a Pennsylvania fundraiser. I was stationed in Pennsylvania when I was in the military. Those are good, hardworking people. Really the difference between Arkansas and Pennsylvania is snow. And in a lot of ways, very similar culturally in the hinterlands of Pennsylvania. Agricultural, forestry, hardworking people, steel mills, just working class folks, just like in Arkansas. And to make a comment like that shows that he just really has no respect for our diversity and our openness and the way we respect every faith. I just thought that was a really an unfortunate addition to his State of the Union, given his history and the statements he's made regarding that. So I'm not happy with the content of his speech. I haven't talked to anybody so far that is. I got, as I said, I had a lot of veterans that contacted me during the speech, while the speech was going on. I know you're not supposed to have your cell phone on, but it was vibrating and vibrating. And so I was receiving text messages in response directly to the comments he was making, just incredulous at the tone and the statements. And this does not match up with the reality that we live in. And so very unfortunate. That's going to do it for us on this edition of Tune In. I didn't really want to vent, but I think probably most of you recognize and probably feel the same way, that this was wholly unacceptable in the context of what's going on in the world, what's going on in our country. He made a comment about the economy being in great shape. I dare say you probably would not feel the same way, and yet he still is living in a fantasy land, and so that's our president. We're out of time. That's going to do it for Tune In. Remember to weigh in. Tweet us at TuneIn AR1 at TuneIn AR1. Send us your name and your hometown. Don't need to send us your address, but your name and your hometown, just so we can appropriately attribute your comments. We do want to hear from you. This is all about you and communicating with you. So we appreciate you joining us again for this edition of Tune In. Until next time, have a good one.